What is going on, guys? Craig1287 here. I'm bringing you some beta footage of The Crew running on the PC. This beta just recently ended, I believe this Saturday actually, as this video will be going up. Very mixed feelings on this. It's a Ubisoft game, and Ubisoft has not exactly been in the best of images for the PC. This beta didn't help them. It's currently locked at 30 frames per second. Now, I have it running on Ultra, and I can't really say if it's optimized all that well and whatnot, because again, it's locked at 30 frames per second. I don't know if I was going to struggle to get to 120 frames per second, which I have a monitor, it's 120 hertz, so I don't really know. I don't even know if I would have been struggling to maintain 60. Based on the graphics, I highly doubt that that should be difficult. If the optimization is there, then yeah, it's a pretty looking game. I'll give it that. It's not the best. This is no Project Cars. There's a good bit of detail. The interiors of the vehicles are. It's not just a cut and paste amongst all of them. These actually look like the interiors of the actual cars. The sound design's pretty darn good, but again, the performance, it's locked at 30 frames per second. Now, a developer did post on a forum that the full game will not be locked at 30 and that there will be an option for 60. However, if it's just an option for 60, if you can't go above 60, then that's going to suck. Not suck as much as if it's locked at 30, but it's gonna suck. Like I said, I have a 120 Hz monitor. I can run. I make sure that I can run any game that I play at a fairly consistent, more than 100, preferably more than 120 consistently, frame rate, even if I have to turn certain settings down. This, again, running on Ultra, but I can't really tell if the optimization is there and if it's going to be a great performing game, again, because it's locked at 30. So that right there is that's a pretty big negative. There's two other big gripes that I have with this game, and one of them could possibly be because of the low frame rate being locked at 30, and that's that, well, it's general between the two. The term floaty, I guess I could say. You can look around with the mouse while in cockpit view. Obviously, as you see here, I drive in cockpit view. I did for Watch Dogs. I downloaded the mod for GTA 4 that allowed you to use the cockpit view rather than just the hood view. I'm a cockpit kind of guy. I like that cockpit. Enough innuendo. The cockpit is just, I prefer the feel of it. Whenever in any game, Dirt and Grid and GTA with the mod, Watch Dogs, and in this, I just feel like it's much more responsive. And also, I love immersion. For me, games that have really crazy art styles is cool and all, and Warframe is great with it being a third-person game. It would be disorienting if it was first-person, and there's exceptions. But when it comes to racing games and typically for shooters, I very much prefer the first-person perspective, and I just want to comment on what's going on. I love seeing the light from the traffic lights glow on the hood and the dashboard and everything. They did a pretty good job with the lighting. So yeah, back to perspective. I really just like to be immersed in my game. So when this is one of the reasons why I spend the exorbitant amount that I do on my computers and upgrade so regularly, much more so than really needed, is because for games that have the realistic look to them, for things like Crysis, Trine, while actually a fairly demanding game and has a lot of graphical effects, I don't really need them to be at the max really to get the max enjoyment out of it. But for something like Crysis and Battlefield, and for racing games that have a very real look, obviously Mario Kart would be an exception, or something like that. Twisted Metal don't really need a realistic look to that. But for something like this, for The Crew, and for Need for Speed titles, I really, really want to have that level of immersion. It really gives you that feel of you're this driver, this very highly skilled driver who can drift around these corners the way that you do, and you really want that realistic approach. And it's set in a real city, well, a real country, actually, I should say. And so you really want to get that sense of immersion. And so I gotta be set there in the cockpit. It really helps to it. If I'm a camera floating behind my car, yeah, you might be able to see more, you can make better choices, but I like that level of challenge of being in the cockpit, and I love that level of immersion from being in the cockpit. And when looking around to check your blind spots when you're in a race against people and you hear their engine as they're revving up behind you like this, for those cops, I hate having to hit the button to just instantly look behind you. It feels cheap. It just feels like it breaks the immersion. And here I decided to do a quick U-turn to escape the cops by running into that thing, because the damage model in the game is a little rough. I'll get to that in a bit. But so yeah, the having to check for around you. You can look 360 degrees around you with the mouse. I changed around the controls and whatnot, and so you can look all the way around you. But it's so floaty that to really check a blind spot and then to look back, it feels so floaty. It was almost like VSync was on and in a very delayed manner, but it wasn't. I disabled VSync because I hate it. And it's so floaty, and I really don't like that. If that's something that they could disable for the full release or have an as an option, I don't like that floaty feel, and it's somewhat game breaking in a way, because when I get to those times when I need to check, is this cop coming up on me or a racer coming up behind me, and I've got to figure out how I'm going to cut them off and whatnot. And then it takes me forever to look back there, see it, and then to look back and face forward so that I don't crash and whatnot. I mean, that's hampering your ability to actually play the game. So, I don't know, if they could just get rid of that floaty feel to the look. And then here you'll see that I'm actually looking around when I'm turning. The game, it's a cool feature. It's a novel idea. I like it. I'm sure it works a little bit more on console or if you're using a gamepad on the PC, but I really just don't like it in reality, in practice. Again, great idea on paper, but when you turn in this game, the camera will, in the cockpit view, will automatically pan and look in the direction that you're looking. It's a cool idea, you know. When you're turning, you want to be able to see what is in the direction that you're turning to. That way you don't hit those things. But it really limits your view, and oftentimes I don't actually want to look that way. I want to look. If I'm drifting, I'm turning, which makes the camera look in that direction, but because I'm drifting and I'm sliding on my tires and not necessarily going the direction my tires are pointing, I actually can't see the direction where I'm wanting to head. And again, yeah, I could use the mouse and compensate for the camera panning, but now I'm fighting. It's like when you have auto aim or aim assist on, and you don't want to in a first-person shooter, and so auto-aim or aim assist turns to your screen to face the character that you're aiming at, and then you also are doing that, so you actually overshoot and you overcompensate, and that's pretty much what happens, and I end up not being able to look. So I've just learned to not even try to adjust. I don't even have my hand on my mouse while driving, and what makes it worse is that it seems like the sensitivity of it is adjusted by how fast you're going. See there, obviously, but right here, I'm going very slow. I'm actually not even really moving. I got stuck on something. And so at these slow speeds, the turn that the camera pans is much more drastic. It's much more emphasized. And so when you're in those parts where you hit something or cops bash into you and slow you down, it makes it really, really difficult to figure out where you're going, and it's just kind of disorienting. So if that was able to be disabled, and the slow floatiness of the camera panning could be disabled or changed, the game would be much more acceptable, in my opinion. Now here is one of the drag races in the game, and it, along with one of the things I mentioned earlier, the damage model, is where the challenge of the game really slacks for me. It's not a very difficult game. The damage model is so incredibly forgiving. You can have ridiculous wrecks in a match, and it just kind of resets you, and you kind of lose a little bit of time. But it really makes turns not as challenging because you can hit so many things. You don't really have to pull the turn off that well. But this this just was not that challenging right here, this drag race. I mean, I didn't do anything. I just literally held my finger down on the W key. If these were forced to be a manual and you actually had to work on your gear shifts, timing to be your skill to win, then that would be awesome. That would actually be pretty cool. So my biggest gripes with the games, I mean, the frame rate is a bummer. But like I said, the forum post, the dev said that'll probably be fixed by the time the beta is done and the full game is out. Whether or not that has any effect on the floatiness of the camera control, if it gets fixed when you're playing at 60 or hopefully please higher, then that would be nice. But still, the camera automatically panning when you're turning is a pretty big negative, and the difficulty or lack of for some of these game modes, it literally is just hold W down. The slalom is not that challenging. Obviously, it's, these are starter levels. Maybe it does get a lot more challenging. Drag racing, I mean, it's just hold W. If they have some where they start to add some turns in, well, I mean, I guess, but it's really not a drag race at that point. So if they forced it to be a manual drag race and you actually had to work with your timing on your gear shifts, then that would be pretty darn cool. And then just have more effect of damage. I mean, not to sim levels. You don't want your tire tread and your fuel gauge, fuel levels to come into play and things like that. But at least if you hit a lot of sides and scrape up the front of your car a little bit, or if you hit enough meter maids and you can plow through trees, fairly thick trees, like a foot more in diameter, and there really is not the biggest drawback. Yes, your car does have overall health that you can repair very cheaply between races. I mean, you can repair almost half of the car's health for a few hundred. Probably grows as you get better cars, but as you get better cars, you're also going to be doing more payouts for races. So it didn't really feel like the damage model was all that penalizing. I had high hopes at first when I saw the amount of traffic that the game was not going to be a very difficult game, but again, the damage model contradicts that, and it feels like it's not going to be too challenging. And if for an MMO, when you're doing these things as much as you are, the challenge really needs to be there. Otherwise, it just gets to be monotonous, and you're just holding W down, and okay, I'm taking a few turns here and there and whatnot. But I don't know. The game has potential. I don't think I'm going to be picking this up when it does release. I might get this when it's around like $20, especially if those problems of mine persist in terms of the floaty feel, the low capped frame rate. I don't know. It has a lot of potential. The details are pretty there. The idea of being able to drive from coast to coast over the United States over a matter of a few hours that it would actually take you to do. I mean, there's not many games that allow you to do that. In fact, there are none that I know of that allow you to do that. So, I don't know. I have high hopes, but I also have very low hopes. Very mixed feelings. So, hope you guys did enjoy the gameplay. The beta, again, this is beta gameplay. Things are definitely going to change for the full release, and hopefully a lot of things do change. So, hope you guys did enjoy the gameplay, and if you disagree with my comments on it, my commentary, please leave your own personal comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this game, and if you guys would like to see it, I know it's not a shooter, but I'd be willing to get 1 or 2 videos out if I did happen to pick the game up, if you guys are interested in seeing it. So, hope you guys enjoyed all of it. Have a good one. Ta-ta.